Bombshell now, live to Florida. A 37-year-old woman goes for a dip at a popular tourist spot only to have her arm bitten off by a 300-pound alligator. As we go to air, the alligator is caught and put down, the woman's arm still in his stomach. But didn't that tourist spot know its waters infested with killer alligators? Straight out to our first guest joining us, Meredith Cinciullo, investigative reporter. P.S. everybody, we are taking your calls live. Liz, throw up the call number for me. Meredith Cinciullo, I'm stunned. She didn't see a sign. She didn't see. Hey, let's hear it from her. Hold on, Meredith. Liz, let's hear from the victim herself.
I didn't realize it was actually a gator until I had touched its head. It felt like a reptile. It was certainly a big reptile on my arm. And it was clamped and it was not letting go. Once I realized that my arm was in a gator's mouth, it wasn't letting go, I said a quick prayer. It rolled me around. And at that point, I realized, okay, you're not getting out of this. And I needed to call for help.
That's from ABC's Good Morning America. Meredith, she goes out there. This is a very popular tourist spot. Where were the warnings? What happened? Let's start there. What happened?
Okay, so she was out at Wekiva State Park. It is very popular here in the central portion of Florida. You can do all sorts of recreational activities, but she was actually out there with a friend. She went swimming. It was very crowded, so she swam away from the crowds of people. That's when she felt something clamp down on her arm. She reached out with her left arm, which was free, to feel whatever was touching her, realized it was a gator, said a little prayer, whacked at the gator. It started rolling her over and over, and that's when she just basically held on and waited for whatever was to happen. And what ultimately happened was that the gator took her arm and swam off.
Okay, what's amazing, Meredith, number one, she had no idea she was swimming with gators. All right, this is a very popular tourist spot in Florida, and as she said, she felt a pressure on her arm, not pain. I would have thought it would have hurt so much. Her body must be going into shock. Joining me right now is a special guest out of Jupiter. With me, Hallie Carlson, who actually helped save Rachel Lilienthal from the killer alligator. Hallie, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, you're very welcome, Nancy.
Tell me what happened. I want to hear it from you.
Well, we were there with our daughter and her boyfriend, my husband and I. We decided to take the kids for a day of fun, and we rented kayaks, went up the river to the state park, and we were on our way back when we heard Rachel screaming for help. Krista and Casey got to her first, and Casey started hitting the alligator, and my husband and I came up after them to aid in what we thought may have been a drowning, but turned out to be something more horrific than any of us had thought.
What did you actually see? I mean, when that's part of an alligator's ploy to disable or kill its victim, is to roll them over and over because they're going underwater. And in all of that, I mean, can you imagine a woman? The gator's got her by the arm. She can't get away, and she's being flipped over and over and over, rolled over and over in the water. So, Hallie Carlson, when you first saw this spectacle, what did you actually see?
When Jeff and I came up on them, what we saw was her being thrashed in the water, and I actually thought that she was struggling to swim, but that's when the alligator actually had her arm in his mouth, and Casey was hitting it with his oar. She had gone back under the water. He rolled her, and then she popped back up. And my husband and I had gotten there by then. I saw that in the distance. When we came around Krista and Casey, she had managed to get between us. And that's when the alligator had actually ripped her arm off, but none of us knew it at the time. We just thought that whatever had occurred, it was quiet now. We were not prepared for anything that was to follow.
Alicia lawyers, Sue Moss, New York. Alex Sanchez, New York. Trinity Hundredmark, Atlanta. All right, Sue Moss, where were all the warning signs? Where were they?
Absolutely. The Florida park rangers have a duty for any public park to look around and see and examine and to see if there are killer gators swimming in the area where all the bathers are. They should have been exploring this area on a constant basis to see, are there any alligators who are laying little babies and have young alligators that they may want to protect? Are there alligator nests? They have the duty to patrol that area on a constant basis so that all of those bathers in that popular area are safe.
Well, first of all, I would start with there shouldn't be any bathers or swimmers in alligator-infested waters. Okay, Sanchez, weigh in.
Look, Florida is filled with alligators. And I find it absolutely incredible to believe that this woman had no idea that there were alligators in that area and decided to take a swim. It's hard to believe that there was no postings and no notifications whatsoever. And if you decide to go swimming in an area that's infested with alligators, you know what? You might get eaten by an alligator.
No. There is no evidence that she thought there was an alligator in the water. I mean, this woman is not an idiot, for Pete's sake. She's a college professor. Trinity Hundredmark. Can you do any better than Sanchez just did? Now, I understand his argument that, quote, everybody knows there are alligators in Florida. Well, that is not part of the law. Everybody knows. That's not a defense when exotic or wild animals are involved. In fact, that's strict liability.
Well, Nancy, it is if you're familiar with the area, and I'm from Florida, and you can't control where an alligator is going to wander. Just because you think an area may be safe, they can wander in your backyard. I had them wander up to my backyard. You can't control where wildlife is going to be. There's no indication that there were nests or anything else. You can't control if an alligator is going to come into a watered area. That's the problem.
Nobody said you could. Nobody said
I understand
you can
that.
Control the alligators. I mean, what this is going to boil down to, I think, Sue Moss, and I'm happy for you, Trinity, that you didn't get your arm bitten off, but this lady did. Sue Moss, it may be an issue of sovereign immunity as well. Sovereign immunity, we all know, means the king can do no wrong. And if this is a state park, the king, in sovereign immunity, as it's called, is the government. So it may be very difficult to sue if this is a state park.
Oh, absolutely. But the real question is, how often have they examined that related area to see if there were nests, if there were anything that would lead us to think that there could be an attack?
Wait,
and
are you saying it's the swimmer's duty to look for baby alligators?
No.
That's not going to happen.
The park rangers.
Okay.
Because then there might be gross negligence on the part of some of those people, and there may be liability.
With me right now, in addition to Hallie Carlson, who helped save the victim from the alligator attack, Meredith Cinsulo, investigative reporter. Joining me right now is Gary Sarge, owner of Gator Country. Gary, why did the alligator attack a human? It's actually very rare.
It is very rare. As a matter of fact, with 7 million alligators in our entire country, can you imagine how many people are swimming in the same water every day in the United States?
Well,
Tens
not
of
me.
millions. This only happens 4 or 5 times on average per year. It is rare. However, if you make the choice to swim in one of those states where you know there's alligators, it's a possibility it's going to happen.
Gary, hold on. I did not ask you, with all due respect, for your legal interpretation of what happened here. It's my understanding you are the owner of Gator Country. All right, so can I talk to you about alligators? Because you know there's gators. I know there's gators. But we can't expect the world in general to know that this river, that this tourist spot where tourists are invited in, is full of killer gators. What I'm asking you about how rare it is that a gator actually attacks a person, and while I've got you, Gary Sarge, what is the reason of flipping the victim over and over? Why does an alligator do that?
What they'll do is these animals bite down with 3,000 pounds per square inch. When they bite, the next thing they want to do is pull you down to deeper water and start doing a death roll, which dismembers its victims.
Okay, you got my attention on the death roll. So they get you, they roll you over and over and then pull you down to the bottom so they can basically start eating you?
Well, what happened? That's correct. The cause of death will be drowning. As they're doing that, they're doing a death roll. If the victim or the prey is lucky enough for their arm or their leg to come off so that they can get back to the surface, sometimes that's what happens as well.
So, Meredith Cinciullo, I understand an alligator was put down. I think I know why we got the right alligator, but why are they sure they've got the right alligator?
Well, first of all, someone actually snapped a photo of that gator with Rachel's swimsuit still in its mouth. So Fish and Wildlife Services
don't all alligators kind of look alike?
Well, yes, but this one, they had an idea of how big it was. They set some traps. They caught a gator that was approximately the size they were looking for. They put that gator down, opened him up, and her arm was still inside of that 300-pound gator.